Hello again, 'tis I, the Rumpled One. Looking Out for Number One by Robert J. Ringer. Probably my favorite author. Okay, looking out for number one. That's what we all really need to do, because who's looking out for us? Certainly not the government, the politicians. It's kind of a dog eat cat too world out there. So, like I said, this is one of my favorite books. And Robert Ringer, the reason I like him is it's good information, but he has a sense of humor. He starts out in the introduction by saying, anyone who is familiar with my philosophy would be disappointed if I didn't say that my sole reason for writing this book was to make as much money as possible. Now, I guess there's some people might think that's kind of odd, but, that's a reality. It's like, in business, there's only one reason for business, and that's to make money. I mean, sure, there might be other byproducts, but the business of business is bottom line. It's making money. But some people talk about, the greedy CEOs and, how they're, treating the workers poorly. Well, some of that might be true, but the bottom line is the company exists to make money. It doesn't exist to provide somebody with a job or health care or benefits. No. You see, the business makes money. And how does the business make money? Well, I've talked about it before, by providing goods and services. And if enough people want those goods and services, well, then the company grows and they have to hire more people or buy more equipment. But anyway, back to the book. You see, Robert says you have to start with a clean slate. So it will be extremely helpful to you to attempt to clear your mind of all preconceived ideas, whether they concern friendship, love, business, or any other aspect of life. He says it's easier said than done, but, try to make the effort because it'll be worth your while. Now, one of the things is that, people say, well, you're supposed to help your neighbor and do this and do that. But reality check. When you're flying in a plane and the oxygen masks come down, they tell you, put your mask on first before you help your kids or your neighbor. Because if you aren't at your best, how can you help somebody else, And that's kind of like, to me, what's wrong with America. See, we're all over the world telling other people what to do and how to run their countries and what they can and can't have. But our country's a mess. We need to clean up our own backyard first. I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with that. And so, looking out for number one. What is it? He says, looking out for number one is the conscious, rational effort to spend as much time as possible doing those things which bring you the greatest amount of pleasure and less time on those which cause pain. Everyone automatically makes the effort to be happy, so the key word is rational. Okay? To act rationally and thus experience pleasure and avoid pain on a consistent basis, you have to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. You see, a lot of times we do things knee-jerk reaction. We don't even think about it. It's automatic. I mean, it's like I take yoga classes. Yeah, go ahead and laugh if you want. But the thing about it is they teach you to breathe. Okay? And it might sound funny, but the reality check is, if they take away your air for 3 minutes, chances are you're going to be dead. So air is important. So proper breathing is important. Filling up your lungs. Inhale. Exhale. Things like that. Might sound, well, everybody knows how to breathe, but the reality check is, if you've never taken yoga, go take a yoga class, and you might just see what I'm talking about if you have a good instructor. So, you have to, Robert says, because people do that which they think will bring them the greatest pleasure, selfishness is not the issue. You see, when you help your neighbor, you know, you're acting in your own best interest because you're going to derive some pleasure out of doing that. So even though you're helping somebody else, you're still receiving a benefit, especially, you know, when you're doing it out of your own free will, because unless somebody's got a gun to your head, you know, you're pretty much doing it out of your own free will. And see, one of the things that's really cool about Robert's book is he has these cartoons in them, and he calls himself the tortoise, okay? And he kind of pokes fun at himself, but the point is that in this little comic here, it's, you know, it's like when you go to the carnival and try and show how strong you are, and you hit it and it goes, and you try and knock that thing so hard so it sends the you know, the ringer all the way up to the top, or whatever they call that thing. But he says, you see, the awareness meter. So if you're very aware, then it's your choice. You know, if you're somewhere in between, then it's chance. But if it's the choice of others, you know, he calls it the pits. And it is. In other words, if you're letting other people make up your mind for you and do what they tell you to do, and you're not thinking about it, you're not making the conscious choice, then you got to admit it, life is the pits. So he says, what's the payoff? Why is it important to act out of choice? What's in it for you? You already know. More pleasure, less pain. Sounds like a commercial, doesn't it? He says, a better life for number one. That would be you, number one. You're your own number one. I'm my own number one. And you see, he talks about the weight and balance happiness scale theory. That's the other thing I like about Robert. He's got all these theories that makes it kind of easy to remember. So when you're out there, you know, living life, and you come up against a situation, you go, wait a minute, that kind of sounds like that theory I heard. So, see, the weight and balance happiness scale theory says it automatically weighs every known alternative available to you at a given moment and chooses the one it believes will bring you the most happiness. You see, but he says sometimes your weight and balance happiness scale malfunctions. So, you know, what happens is if you feed it irrational thoughts, then it's going to make irrational decisions. You see, and he quotes John Galt. It says that happiness is possible only to a rational man. The man who desires nothing but rational goals, seeks nothing but rational values, and finds his joy in nothing but rational actions. You see, if you act irrational or crazy, well, what do you think? It's kind of like a computer, garbage in, garbage out. So and that's how your mind works. If you fill it with garbage, well, then guess what? Garbage. More of it. So, and the thing he also goes on to say is the trouble begins when others try to tell you what makes you happy. That's kind of like the government saying everybody needs health care. You know, or, you know, we need to do this or we need to do that. You know, once again, you know, on the topic of freedom, you know, in the land of the free, the government's doing everything it can to restrict our freedom because they pretty much want us to go with the party line, if you know what I mean. So, you know, like I said, this is a really good book. And I'm going to be doing, you know, some more readings from it and discussing it. So, once again, go down to your library. See if you can get a copy of Looking Out for Number One by Robert J. Ringer. And if you really like it, you know, you can go ahead and order it. And but I always say, you know, go to the library first, read the book. And then if you really think you want it, go ahead and order a copy. And of course, you might be able to find something online. So, once again, you know, if you're not looking out for number one, who will? Remember, people, life is choices. Choose wisely.